Welcome, everybody. I'm Lindsay. Welcome to our Adventure Gear on a Budget class. Tonight, I am tuning in from Eugene, Oregon. Like I said before, if you don't want to have your video on, you're welcome to take it off. Everybody will be muted throughout the class. You're welcome to pop any questions you have down in the chat or save them for the end. Totally up to you, but we will just address them sort of as we go. So I'm going to let Hallie take over and introduce ourselves.
Awesome. Hi, can everyone hear me okay? Doing good? Awesome. So my name is Hallie. I'm actually coming from Butte, Montana. I'm born and raised in Montana, 5th generation, kind of happy about that. So my background is I kind of started out hiking, backpacking, not when I was young, but in college. And I was backpacking and hiking with people that were like, oh, just figure it out. Don't really care about it and just go. And I had to learn the hard way, which we all have to sometimes learn that way. And I was hiking with like jeans and all cotton, and it was misery, like complete miserable. And I didn't know what I was doing. And kind of over the years, I started my own business and stuff too. And through that and through just the years of accumulating, as you can probably see behind me, tons of gear. I kind of picked out things that I really like. And I'm one of those people that believe that there's this misconception that you have to have the best and the latest of every kind of gear possible to get out there. And I really don't think that you need that. There is some things I'm going to talk about tonight that I do highly recommend that you kind of splurge a little bit on, just because it's going to help you out in the end. And there's going to be companies that might not really be too happy with me after talking tonight, but it's just years of experience. And there's companies that I really, really love. They're tried and true. They stand by who they are. And I would like to kind of go over those and how to like just budget yourself when you do go outdoors. Like I said, I can go down into the weeds with a lot of this stuff, but I don't want to really do that tonight because I only have an hour. But what I want to go over first is like your gear options. There's a lot out there, but the ones that I really like and are not that expensive on some of their stuff is I actually, for stoves, for one thing, when I go out, I use this little pocket rocket a lot of the time. And these things are, I mean, I have it down because I had to kind of go through just because pricing has changed so much over the years. But this thing literally is probably 10 years old and it's lasting. And it like cost around $60, and I can put pretty much any kind of canister on it and it works just fine. And then I use the pot. MSR literally has stood behind every little product I've ever bought. And like I said, these things last for years. If I'm not using this, I'm always using their reactor line, which it's going to be a little bit more expensive. It's around 150 some bucks, but it all just kind of goes into its system. So those are the only two, like literally, that I'll ever use. And cost effective wise, the pockets I could invest into this tiny little container right here that is like super tiny. It goes into your backpack. I actually take this for day hikes as well, just because it's so tiny. And I can use it for anything. Like I said, $60 now. Back in the day, like when I first bought this, I think it was like 30 something. So yeah, it definitely has gone up in price, but it's well worth it. But it's still in that budget friendly stuff where I like to start thinking of things like if they're over $100 for me, then I'm like, do I really need this? And I have to like justify that. And a lot of the time with my gear, I have a coat here, and I'll show you guys something. Is I have patches, I have these nano puffs, and literally who makes the stove is MSR is who makes the stove, and it's the pocket rocket. It's this little guy right here. You can go on their website, and if you're not like, and this is another like little budget thing that I do. I always get the like little 10% off things where like, oh, if you become this, do 10% off your first order. I'm like, okay. So then I'll do that. And then later on, I do it again. It's kind of like, yeah, doing the system. But like, so that's like with stoves, I can go down the rabbit hole again, like with the stove systems, but those literally are the two that I use that are gonna like get you through stuff. You can use them on day hikes. overnights, that sort of thing. As far as I can, like I said, go over the jacket issue that I have is I don't like buying new nano puffs and stuff like this. I love Patagonia. I really, really do. Like, it's one of the things that I will spend some money on, but I'm going to give you guys a hot little tip tonight on Patagonia that I found out probably 4 years ago. Here in Montana, we have a Patagonia outlet in Dillon, and it is super sweet. I don't know if you guys like in Montana will go to it, but try to go to it. And I'm going to give you a hot little tip on these guys. Is go to the outlet in wherever place you're at. I think they have one in like Seattle has one and stuff. I always go to the men's section and I look at the extra smalls and smalls and all their gear, like their pants, like, and I love going to the Patagonia like puff section over in the men's and look at the extra smalls and the smalls because they're cheaper than the women's, and they're going to fit like a women's because they fit kind of more narrower in the waist and fit more like that women's style, but you're going to get them for a huge discount when you go into that outlet section for the men's. And I kind of, like I said, found that out 4 years ago. I was shopping around in the like Dillon store and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't afford this, even though it's like an outlet. And I thought, I'm just going to go to the men's section and check it out. Went there and it was amazing. So definitely, like, if you are into the Patagonia and stuff, and do that for other brands. It's amazing, like the cut and stuff. I was talking to actually someone about it at Patagonia. They said, yeah, the cut for the men's is actually a little bit smaller in the waist for, and it will fit women. So definitely check it out because you'll find like screaming deals on that stuff. And one thing that I do for like my nano puffs and almost everything is I patch the heck out of everything I use because I hate buying new gear. I like to repurpose everything. And so what I'll do is, I don't know, does anyone know what these are? These little nozo patches are for your gear? Has anyone ever heard of those? Let me know in like the chats if you do. But it's NOSO, and they come in these like cool little designs and everything. And I swear by these guys. They range from anywhere from like $6 to, I mean, you can get like the really fancy ones for like $13.95, but they will stick forever. Like I've had on this coat, this coat is probably, oh my gosh, I'd say 10 years old, and I've got probably 15 different patches on it that will tell the story, but their nozo patches, great. I absolutely love them. They stick forever, you know, and if they do start to peel off, I talked to the company and I was like, okay, you know, what's going on? They said, just heat them back up and they'll go and get their stickiness again. So they said, don't worry about it. Just like reheat them and put them in the dryer and you're good to go again. You can also get, and I have these little guys, is tenacious tape. You can find it at like REI, that sort of thing. These will patch pretty much anything. You don't need to buy all these patch kits. A lot of people will go out and buy like all this tons of patch kits and stuff like that. You really don't need to do that. Like literally nozos or tenacious tape are kind of my go-to for everything. And it's not just jackets and pants, but it's pretty much, you know, you can do your thermarest, that kind of stuff too. So that's one way to save on gear is just patch it. I'm constantly doing that. I sew my gloves up. I'll get like patches of alpaca, like material from Joann's fabric and stuff. And I'll like patch up my gloves and everything. Like I said, I'm really thrifty when it comes to my gear because I don't like to be buying new stuff all the time. On my last thing, I was talking about survival class stuff and I pulled out my DeLorme. And this is like one of the first DeLormes that was out here before Garmin bought them. And I've actually had friends who are like, why do you not upgrade this? And it's because it works. And I honestly believe that you don't always need to be buying the latest and greatest. If it works, keep it. There's really, really no reason to be buying all the updated stuff. It's a lot of people, I think, when I first started out, I thought, well, I needed to buy like the latest and greatest, like pants and clothing and stuff like that, because if I didn't have that, it was more of like, for me, like, what are people going to think of me when I go out on the trail? I need to have like the cool stuff, you know, like the cool kid crowd kind of thing. And now I'm like, I don't really need to do that. I'm going to use what works for me, and I'm going to like be able to save money in the process of doing that. So that's why, like, this works. I'm not going to upgrade because it's still ticking and it's perfect. I don't need to do that. And so it's things like that, like with sleeping bag systems, Thermarest, I use the little accordion one, and of course, like everything else, it's gone up in price a little bit, but it's still good. Nemo has one now on the market for like $50. And does everyone know what I'm talking about when I talk about the accordion one? It just kind of folds out. I use that one for like my base. And like I said, those are $50. And then I use a Nemo insulated one that you can blow up. And that one runs around $100. It's like $110. Sometimes you can get them on REI, like Wheel and Deal, look online for that kind of stuff. But Nemo and Thermarest for my sleeping system has worked great. I have never, ever had an issue with my Nemo, and I've had it out in some conditions that are just horrible. And I've never had it pop a hole in it. I've never had anything happen. I've had my dogs walk all over it with their claws, and nothing has happened to it. So I really highly recommend Nemo, and they back their stuff too, and they're really cost effective. And if you talk to them, that's another thing, is talk to these companies. Sometimes they'll offer discounts. Just if you send them an email and say, hey, this is what I'm looking at. Sometimes, which is really kind of cool, is they have seconds, and they'll send you their seconds, and there's nothing wrong with them. It's just that they might not have it's the color, or they had a whole bunch of different stuff that they needed to get rid of. So there's one thing you want to like look at. Another thing with sleeping pad systems is I sleep cold, like in the cold a lot of time. And here in Montana, it gets down to like, even in the summertime, it gets really cold. Buying a sleeping bag that is like a -20 or even 0 can be super expensive. And I personally don't want to spend that money. I wish I had that money, but I don't. So I did some research, and I found that the Sea to Summit reactor, it's a sleeping bag liner, works just fine. Like absolutely have no problems with this thing. It goes down to, I would say, because my sleeping bag is a 20-degree, this will get me down to around -10, just fine. And I don't have to worry about it. And it's nice. And I can use this in the summertime too, as just a liner with my little bit lighter weight sleeping bags. But if you're looking at anything, oh yeah, it's called Sea to Summit. And it's their reactor is what, if you guys can see that on there. And these things are great. Yeah. Thank you for putting that in there, Lindsay.
Yeah. That's a great tip. I would have never thought to do that, to be completely honest. Love that tip.
Yeah, because I wanted a new sleeping bag, but I was like, I can't afford the $800, $600 price tag for a 0-degree bag. And I was like, what do I do? And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get the liner, see if this works. And if it doesn't, then I'll look at my options. And it works great. I've never had any issues with it. And so, yeah, definitely that. Another thing I do, and this is one thing I like to talk about, is food wise. When I go out and do stuff, and I used to spend a ton of money on bars and things like that, because I was like, ooh, the cool things. I want to like get all the cool things. But bars are super expensive. They're like sometimes $5, $4. I mean, they can get up to like $8 in pricing. And I talk about this in my class for what to do overnight kind of thing. We talked about this last time. Some of you might have been on there when we had one of the classes before, but I kind of geek out on food, and it's because my digestive system is not the best sometimes. And those Cliff bars and all those other fancy bars just don't seem to work. And I actually talked to Scratch Labs, actually has like all these different bars and cookbooks. And I'm going to actually show you a cookbook here in a minute that I go off of. And it works for my digestive system, but it's a lot cheaper to make my own food. So I actually do that now, just because my digestive system is a lot happier. And I didn't realize they were talking about Cliff bars and those power bars and all those nice fancy, brands that you can get out there, that when you eat them on the trail or when you're camping, it actually takes one whole Nalgene of water to get that in your system and be able to use it. So when I was having issues out on the trail, eating my Cliff bars and eating those, nice fancy $4 or $5 bars, and I'd get really bad gut issues, I didn't realize I was like, taking 2 sips of water for that, and it wouldn't digest in my system. And so that's what was going on. And so then I started like doing a little bit more research of how can I save money on this and also save my body at the same time, and probably other people that are around me. And so like Scratch Labs has got this one book out. I don't know if you guys know any much, like who here knows like Scratch Labs. They're awesome. They do a lot of different stuff, but they have a book called The Feed Zone portable book. It is amazing. I got this as a freebie actually when I bought some other stuff a while back, because it's like, okay, I got to see if this stuff works because I'm dying here and this is not good. And I don't want to be like spending all my money on this stuff. And so I went and bought this because they actually do a lot of research. And this book is basically all whole foods. Absolutely love it. And it's really basic foods. And like for Whole Foods, like to go out for the day, I make my own protein bars and they're just like little balls. And all I do is put peanut butter in them. I roll chia seeds in them, coconut oil in there, and just kind of make a ball. And I just eat that throughout the day. It's super cheap. You don't need like all the fancy stuff for that. And I'm also like with this Feed Zone book, I make rice. And then I just make like a little rice with, then I put like peanut butter and jelly between the rice, and then I make another fold. So they come out in these little bars, and I use that as well. And it's just because when you're out there and about, a lot of the time your body needs just the water content and everything. Like I said, I can go down into the weeds with that. But so that's what I use. Is I would recommend Whole Foods and just make your own stuff, and get out of the like mode of getting those bars and everything, just because they are so expensive. And just with any kind of marketing thing, they're going for that. They're going for the fact that they might get you with the marketing with the fancy smancy stuff, and then you're going to pay the $8 and then be on the trail and eating it, and it's just going to go right out the other end, unfortunately, a lot of the time, and it's not going to be doing anything to your system. Whereas the Whole Foods will. So that's what I would recommend with that. And like I said, Scratch Labs is a great one. Another one that I absolutely love, and they like stand behind their stuff. They do free shipping and everything, is super great and super like cost effective. Is I love these little, I don't know if you guys can see them because it's probably glaring off my thing. There it is. They're called rec packs, and they literally are like, you just fill them up to kind of around there, shake them really good. This thing will last me pretty much the whole day. I just did a big 120-mile endurance race and literally use these, and they are like $12, but this is like 2 meals in there, because a lot of the time you go out and you use those. I mean, there's so many of those dehydrated meals out right now, and they are super expensive. I looked at them the other day and they're like $13 for a meal. They're $14, and I just can't afford that stuff anymore, just on what I'm doing with my life. I'm like, I'd rather, afford that on other things, like feeding myself and my dogs. So when I go out and stuff, this is what I use now, and it's free shipping on them. Like I said, and my digestive system loves me for this kind of stuff, and that Whole Foods. Like I said, I don't ever do the Cliff Bars and anything anymore, just because I can't afford it, to not good on the system. Another thing, budget wise, like I said, I was going to talk about gear and what I love and don't love. Is I love Sea to Summit for the Reactor sleeping bag liner, but I'm going to show you guys something. So this is where you guys are probably going to be like, oh, I totally relate on this. I buy gear sometimes because I'm like, cool, I'm going to go with a different brand. This is great. And then $80 later, I'm like, okay, that sucks. I don't like this. And Sea to Summit has gaiters, and I love OR. I love them to death. I don't know why I went with Sea to Summit. I thought, okay, I'm going to try and do for brand. I'm going to go with this. I spent $80 on these things, and let me tell you, $80 later, it's not even been a year. And if you can see, they have huge holes in the gaiters, and I was not happy about this. And I talked to the company because I was like, oh my gosh, I just literally spent $80 on these, because I thought, oh, support a different company. And I contacted them, and they got back to me, and they were like, oh, shoot, that sucks. And so I was like, are you going to do anything about it? And they did send me another pair, and I've kept them in there because I'm like, cheap. So I'm still using these, even though I'm now hanging myself up on the gaiter because it gets stuck on my snowshoes and wants to like make me eat crap in the snow and everything. But the problem is the skaters they gave me are the exact same ones. And I have a friend that bought them as well. And she has the same exact problem. So I would not recommend buying their gaiters. Unfortunately, like Sea to Summit, I love you for everything else, but $80 for something that's not going to last is, like I said, outdoor research. I've had their gaiters literally, if I'm not kidding you, probably 12, 13 years, and they last. And that is one thing I kind of want to talk about before we have to go here is when I say gear on a budget, there's two different sides to this. You can be really cheap, like backpacks and stuff. There's one thing I will splurge on is shoes. Like I will really splurge on shoes, like the Solomon ones that I actually just got from you guys for that one class. Amazing. I'm not okay. So I'm gonna
I
say
will
this.
agree with you on that. There are certain pieces of gear that are worth spending
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shoes
Yeah,
are
and like the
shoes.
Solomon ones and Scarpa, but the Solomon's actually, no, I'm not joking here, saved my feet for the 120-mile endurance race that I just did. I'm not joking. Like I bought 5 different pairs of shoes down there, and I'm not okay. So this is the cheap part that I shouldn't have went cheap on. I went down there with a pair of cheap La Sportivas because I was being cheap. And I thought, okay, I don't want to be spending money on a good pair of shoes because trail running shoes are really expensive. So I bought them for $60 at a garage sale. And I went down there, and in 2 days during this race, I got 40 miles, not even 40 miles in. My feet were I'm not kidding you, screwed. I actually have lost 4 toenails because of those, that incident. I had numerous blisters. It was bad. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go with the Solomons because I brought them down there. I went with the Solomons, and they saved my feet. So yeah, I highly recommend don't skimp on things like your socks and your boots. In a backpack, I mean, if you're just getting started and you don't know where to go, there's nothing wrong with literally going to Costco or to Walmart just to pick something up, just to get you outdoors. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. They've got actually in Walmart a good section. Some people cringe at that and they're like, oh, it's a big box store, and that's true. You can go to little boutique stores, but you're going to be paying a lot. And until you actually know what you want, you can be like me where I've got so much gear back here where I'm like, oh, I'm going to save it. But it's because I didn't know what I was doing. So I was just buying whatever because I was like, ooh, the cool things. I want all the cool things. But a lot of the time you get the cool things like these Sea to Summits and they don't work out. And then you're out to $80 and then you're back to square one. So that's what I said. Just getting out the door though, I honestly just believe you really don't need to go and to these big box. I mean, REI is great. Stuff like that, Walmart, Costco, just go out and buy something just to get you out the door before you figure it out. Because backpacks, like I said, everybody's different. And I've gotten Osprey, I've gotten Deuter backpacks. And unfortunately, Gregory doesn't work for me. I bought one of those. I've bought in so many different brands. And I finally found out that Osprey does work. And so does Black Diamond for certain things, just because of my body structure. So I would recommend, before you really know what to do, you don't have to splurge on the backpack. Although Osprey does have some really good ones. REI though has some really cost-effective, cool day packs out there that are like $100 and some. So like I said, that's my range. I kind of start to, think to myself, do I really need it if it goes over like $100, $110? But like I said, shoes, socks, I don't, now because of that. And even this past couple weekends, I made the biggest mistake of my life. And it's like, why did I even do that? Because here I'm talking about it, but I did it. So it's but there's two sides of this, like I was saying, the equation is there's budget and then there's budget friendly where you're like, okay, what do I want to splurge on? And a lot of the time, I think to myself, well, if I splurge on it now, how long is it going to last? And that's another thing when you buy budget gear is there's certain things you can really go budget friendly on and it will last for years. And there's some things where you go budget friendly on and it's going to blow out within a couple weeks or two, like a backpack from Walmart. Is it going to last? No, it's probably not. Will it get you out the door? Yeah. Will it make you realize, do you really want to do this? Yeah, maybe, maybe not. So it's stuff like that, I had a friend who he would buy the cheapest tent possible. And I kept telling him, why are you doing that? Because every year, no joke, he's like, well, I don't want to spend $400 on a tent. So he would go out and buy $100 tent, and then he'd buy another $100 tent. And he's like, well, I don't like this one. So I bought this one because this is 100 and that's 100. And I'm like, but you do realize you just bought the same amount of money. If you would have bought the new one, that was a better price for like $400. And he's like, oh yeah, you got a good point there. So there are certain things where it's like, you got to kind of pick and choose, you know, do you want to be like spending the money now that's cheap on something, and then you're spending more in the long run because you now just spent, you know, okay, pair of pants, you know, $20 here. Well, now you just bought another $20 because that $20 didn't work out. Now you're up to 40. And all of a sudden you just keep escalating where you're like, I could have just bought those for like, you know, $100. So, you know, you kind of figure that out in your head, like what you really want to spend your money on, and, you know, keep it as cost effective, and kind of have that limit. You know, my limit is, like I said, 100, just 110, which you're thinking, oh my gosh, that will get you nothing, but it actually does. It gets you a lot, especially with like food and stuff. You can get bulk foods, make your own bulk stuff. If you have a dehydrator, awesome, dehydrate your own foods, learn that process, because it's going to save you a lot of money in the end, and like help you out. And which, like, oh, the pair of socks I use Darn Tough. I stopped using Smart Wool probably about 2 years ago. And I don't know if it's just whatever they did with their like brand or whatever, but it just they don't last. I keep getting holes in the back of my heels on all my Smart Wools. Every single one of them, they don't even last a year anymore. Whereas Darn Tough has been lasting me like 2 years. I mean, I use the heck out of my stuff, but like socks, it's either Farm to Feet or Darn Tough. They're around $20.
I love Farm to Feet. I love.
Yeah.
I was just typing that. I love Farm to Feet is my favorite for socks. I was literally just typing that, but yes, they're
yeah. And they stand by their product. Like that's another one where, I mean, they, you know, it's like, I want to let you guys know, like MSR, Outdoor Research, and like Sea to Summit did stand by their product. It just didn't work.
So,
and, you know, but
I want to touch on that. Do you know, I forget how many companies there are, but there's a lot of companies out there, like Patagonia, I think is the one that started the repair program.
Yeah.
Where like, if you have gear, they'll repair it. And I know I was just talking to a friend, and like, she was telling me Arc'teryx, which a very expensive gear, but I will say I bought one of their hoodies. It was like $180. I would stand by that thing a million times over and over again. And like, they'll replace like any problems you have for up to a year or whatever, or so long, and you can bring it in and they'll repair or whatever. Like there are some pretty, like if you do your research on brands, if you're spending money, like you're saying, on certain gear, I think like there's some brands that are worth supporting or investing in, that will fix their stuff or repair it or replace it or help you out.
Exactly. That's just, yeah, it's like, you know, it's like MSR, I've contacted them. I have their snowshoes. REI replaces for a lifetime. I don't know if they do that, and do they
don't
still
do it
do that
anymore? Not, it's not lifetime. They have an up to a year return policy. And I was going to actually touch on REI, because when you were talking about boots and shoes and stuff, I have found what I love about them is that at least if you go out and you wear your boots out on a hike, you can bring them back. Like majority of other stores or places will never let you wear your boots like outside of your own home. So you can't really ever get like a good feel, but like I've definitely, like you were saying with Solomon. So I have bought these one pair of trail running shoes when I was like doing a Ragnar, and I ran in them for like 4 months. And I was like, this is just what trail running shoes feel like. They just hurt. My feet are sore all the time. I was like, there was like no cushioning. I was like, they're all really thin. This is what they're supposed to be like. I got a pair of Solomons and I like started running in those, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is like life changing. I feel like I'm floating through the forest. And I brought those back to REI, and they took them back, like no questions asked. And it was super. And also on that note, I like REI, I guess. They have like the used gear stuff, which is super cool. A lot of times if you go in the store, they have sections where there's used gear or like return gear that you can buy. They don't do their garage sales anymore, but that's always a good way to, you can't return that stuff. So it's, I think, final sale on that stuff. And then they also have their 50% off like their shop online store, which sometimes I will browse. Oh, and do you know,
Yeah.
have you heard of Sierra Design? Is it Sierra Designs?
Yeah.
They're like the TJ Maxx for outdoor gear, which
Yeah.
another good place sometimes to buy cheap stuff or get good deals.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't, yeah, it's just one of those things where a lot of the time, I mean, I think people, when they first start out, and this is where it's like my TED Talk portion of it is, I know, join me for my TED Talk tonight. But it's so true that, it's like, this is my candid side going to come out here, is a lot of the time when people start out, and I've certainly done this, is the cool factor of having all the cool gear and the cool things. And I don't, and like I said, I'll buy like the shoe that everyone's buying because, well, it's $200. I need it. Everyone else has got it. And like you were saying, your feet hurt and you're like, oh, but this is just what it's like. It looks cool though. And I don't think that, it's like, I think getting out of that mindset of thinking that you need the best and latest and greatest, because there are so many manufacturers coming out with this great marketing campaigns to kind of push that, get outside, which is great, but they're also pushing their gear at the same time, which is super expensive. And like, there's so much out there and it gets so overwhelming that you're like, okay, how do I even start this? I'm not going to do it then because I don't know where to go and I can't afford it. Because I have been in that situation where I have gone to, places or on the trail or with people. And unfortunately, I've been the one that's got the patched gear and I've got the duct tape and I've got, things that are all sewed up, and people are, people are looking at me and they're like, why don't you just buy new gear? Why are you like patching your stuff up? And I'm like, but this tells a story and I'm cheap, But, so think that way when you do, if you are starting out. I don't know if anyone here, let me know in the chats if any of you are just starting out with like, going out hiking or getting outdoors, because I love to know if people are just starting out and everything, or people are looking for little hot tips here and there. Just put it in the chats because I just love to know if you're like, starting out square one, you have no idea what to do. I just want to let you know that we've all been there. And I'm looking for a new backpack. Backpacks, like, yeah, just awesome, Sheila, just starting out. I love that because it's like, don't let anyone ever like, if they're like, oh, you need this, you need that. And it's like $200-300. You don't need that. Literally, I have a friend that, I'm not joking, I saw them this weekend and they had a pair of really sweet pants that were hiking pants. I swear to God, I thought they were Black Diamond hiking pants and they weren't. They were from Costco and they were great. And they were like, she was like, oh no, she goes, I got these at Costco. I can't remember what she called them. They were something trekking pants that she got there, really nice hiking pants. And she said she bought them for like $39.99 at Costco. So yeah, if you're looking for stuff like that, I would definitely recommend it. Don't let anyone kind of make it get overwhelming when you're just starting out with stuff, because like I said, it can get overwhelming and you can kind of get that like where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. And I don't want to be the embarrassing one on the trail. So I'm just going to like buy the good gear and the expensive stuff. If you have the money, great. But it's like, you don't really need to do that to get started. You can buy things from Costco, get outdoors, which is something from, Walmart, that kind of stuff. And if you're in an area, and this is another little hot tip, my friend does this a lot. She's notorious for this and I love her for it. We live by Bozeman, and Bozeman's got secondhand stores. And because Bozeman has a lot of secondhand stores that are, let's just say, very influential, high-end people that think they love the outdoors, go to, do their thing. A lot of that gear ends up at the secondhand stores. And oh my gosh, she has gotten amazing deals on stuff from the secondhand stores at places like Seattle probably has them, all these different places. If you live in an area where there's like kind of a community that like has that kind of higher end people living in it, a lot of the time those people are buying gear and they'll use it for like 1 year and then they just chuck it. It goes to the secondhand store And like I said, she's found amazing stuff at the secondhand store. So I would definitely recommend going there and checking that stuff out, because she's actually outfitted herself numerous times for ski gear and like nice coats and
Yeah.
stuff like that from going to like Bozeman and going to those secondhand stores. And you can't even tell. Like some of the stuff still had tags on it, she said, that were there.
I've had
And
other
it's just
friends, same thing. Like they'll get the stuff with the tags on it, and I'm like,
yeah,
awesome.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just what, I want to like, so, can you use a day pack as an overnight pack? Absolutely. Like I have an Osprey that I use. It's a Kestrel 38, and it has the little bottom section that you can put you can put your like tent on the outside and the sleeping bag on the inside. It's mostly, I mean, if that's like minimalist, I do a lot of like, I love cowboy camping, and cowboy camping is where you don't use a tent. You just sleep outside. And I pretty much will use my day pack for that. I'll just bring a lightweight sleeping bag, and then I'll use that reactor liner, because it's like, not too big. And I'll just shove that in there along with all my other kind of stuff, and I'll definitely use it. So yeah, if you are thinking about, well, I just want to go out for a night, if you're doing multi-day, I would definitely recommend going with a bigger pack that's for multi-day use. But if you're just looking for an overnight, there's absolutely 100% no reason you can't use your day pack for just going out overnight. Like I said, you don't need to be, getting a different pack unless you're like wanting to get into that. We're like, oh, maybe I want to go 2 or 3 days or 4 days. And then maybe start looking at those heavier weight packs, which that can, get down, going into the weeds with that too, is looking at packs and how much weight. That's one thing I want to say is, if you're getting a day pack or a backpack, look at how much weight it can actually take. Go on their websites, and those day packs and backpacks will actually say in the description how much weight it can handle. Because I've actually maxed out a couple Deuter packs sometimes, and it will actually tear into your shoulder blades really bad if you max them out. Like my Osprey will say it can go up to about 30-40 pounds, but 40 pounds is literally maxing it out, and you don't ever want to do that with your backpacks. So if you're looking at getting into the backpacking day packs and you haven't gotten one yet, see how much you're going to be putting in them. As far as a day pack, 20 pounds is, you can kind of get away with that. 30 pounds is what I typically will do, just because of camera equipment and all that other stuff. But like I said, look at what they're recommending for the weight on that. A lot of people don't do that. I didn't do that when I first started out.
I never knew about that until
you didn't either. Yeah, I didn't know.
You literally just told me. I never would have thought to look at that. Honestly, I never thought about that. Like, it sounds so stupid, but I never thought about that. And
that's one of the reasons why a lot of people will buy a lot of different packs, and it hurts them, and they don't understand why. They're like, gosh, I just spent, $100 $200 on this pack, and what the heck is going on here? And what it is it could not be, it's the pack. Sometimes it is the pack, sometimes it's just your body, but a lot of time it's because they don't tell you to look at what that weight recommendation is, and you might just be maxing the pack out. And so when you're putting all the weight in it, and then you put it on your back, and it's hurting you really bad, especially in like the collarbones and stuff, and you're like, oh my gosh, now I got to go buy a new pack. You might just be having a weight issue with that pack where you have to take some weight out. So yeah, like if you're just starting out, definitely like look at those weight recommendations on there. Like I said, I didn't know that, and I was buying pack after pack because I thought it was me, when I was just literally maxing that pack out. So that's it.
Another fun fact on backpacking, since I feel like, well, there's a lot of ladies in here, it sounds like, starting to backpacking. I didn't know that like your straps can be a different size than your pack. So that was something I learned going into REI to get fitted, is that like you can get a large pack with like a medium strap, or you need like smaller straps. So something like when you do go in, or you're getting into this and you're looking for a pack, like go in and have somebody properly measure you, and like try on different packs, and like make sure you're weighting them, putting weight in them in the store. Like obviously not probably 40 pounds, but they usually have stuff like you can shove like your bags and your pads and things in there to kind of get a feel for how it fits you with the weight on it. Cause that's another thing, like you're saying, you go home and you put it on and you're like, well, what's going on? This doesn't feel like anything it was supposed to feel like.
Exactly. And yeah, it's like, I'm not kidding. I've got like probably because I don't like getting rid of gear either. So I'm one of those people where I'm like, I can't get rid of it. I might use it. So I've got like, oh my gosh, probably 6 or 7 different packs. They don't work right for me, but I refuse to get rid of them. And a lot of the time it's because some people are just starting out that I go with. And so I'll just lend them a pack to see how they like it before they actually go buy one. Another thing with sleeping bags is they don't tell you this before you go out and buy sleeping bags and you're like, oh my gosh, this isn't working. Why am I so cold? I don't understand this. Then you go out and buy another one, and then you're now up $400 or $500 into it. Is the manufacturer always says, like, mine was 20 degrees. So when I have a Western Mountaineering one, and I was talking to Western Mountaineering rep, and I asked him about it. And I said, well, I want something because I like being warm. That's my biggest comfort when I'm backpacking. So I like to be comfortable and sleep well, because the next day I'm not going to be so cranky for everybody and for myself. I don't want that. And he actually told me, he's like, when you buy a sleeping bag, he goes, don't look at the, like, if it says 20 degree or 30 degree or 40, that's actually not what it is. And I was like, okay, that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm like, what are you talking about? And so he said, what 20 degree means is that's the minimum it can go for your comfort. And I said, okay, so what are we talking? He goes, you'll be okay at 20 and you'll survive, but you're not going to be comfortable. And I said, are you kidding me? He's like, no. He goes, so when you buy a sleeping bag, look at that 30 degree or 40 degree, and that's the like bare minimum of, okay, that's what it's going to be. That's not like comfort level. That's where the sleeping bag is actually going to go to be okay and get you through the night. He goes, so if you're looking at, like, if you want to be like comfortable at 20, go with a lower bag, like go with a 10 or a 0, you'll be comfortable at 20. And I was like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. And so those bags were super expensive. So that's why I went the sleeping bag liner, because I was like, okay, I can kind of, manage that. So if you're looking at getting into buying like sleeping bags and you're just starting out for backpacking, and you sleep cold and you're like, oh, at 20 degree, that should get me through it. You have to think to yourself, the manufacturer puts that 20 degree on there, but that is not saying you're comfortable at 20 degrees. So go with a 10 degree. And if you're sleeping in the summer, well, 40 degree or a 30 degree bag is going to get me okay. 30 degree is that, like, it's going to be that I'm going to be okay to get through the night. But maybe if I want to be a little bit more comfortable, maybe I should get the 20 degree bag. Does that make kind of sense to people? Like when you're looking at sleeping bags and stuff like that, which I didn't know that. And when I was starting out, so I literally bought like a North Face Cat's Meow, because I was like, oh, got to get that. And then I got a La Fuma, which I don't even think La Fuma is even making anything anymore. I got a 40 degree bag and I was freezing. And I was like, why am I freezing? It's 40 degrees. It's summertime. I shouldn't be freezing this bag. But it was a 40 degree. And that was their rating of, okay, you're going to be okay. You'll survive the night in this, but you're not going to be comfortable. So I bought behind me, you can see like the stack of sleeping bags. And the green one with the duct tape on it, you can see the orange duct tape right there. That's my Western Mountaineering. That thing is like an awesome bag. But that's what I was doing. I was buying like all of these sleeping bags thinking, why am I so cold? I don't understand it. And thankfully, I found someone that was honest with me and told me, hey, this is what's going on here. So that's another tip if you're just starting out is just don't be like, really look at what you want to be sleeping in. There's a big thing now for the quilts that are coming out. And I actually acquired a couple of those Enlightened Equipment quilts. I actually have 2 of them. And the reason why I have them is a couple Continental Divide through hikers came to the hostel that I was working at. And I'm no joke, they left them there. They said they didn't like them. They didn't want them. They left them. And I was like, okay, so so you're leaving these, quilts, and I like them for in the back of my truck, but I probably wouldn't take them camping with me or backpacking. I really don't like that quilt system. A lot of people are going with it, and I don't know if it's, it's maybe how you sleep. So if you're like, I love to be cocooned, not like, but I roll a lot of the time. I'm a side sleeper. So I like to have my bag, which a lot of companies are coming out with that wider hip area now. And it's great. Like Western Mountaineering has that where it's a little bit wider hip. but I like the mummy system. I don't like the quilt system at all. Like I said, I just acquired them because they were free. But would I use them backpacking? Probably not, just because I just don't like that system at all, and how it works. But car camping, absolutely great. They're great for that kind of thing. But like I said, so for those kind of things, think about how you're going to sleep, like maybe go in your backyard and just set up a little kind of makeshift camp. And that's what I've done before, is just kind of go out there, make a little makeshift camp. And I actually, because I found out when I'm sleeping in my house, I actually sleep on my back. I don't really sleep on my side a lot of the time. I'm sleeping on my back. And I found out when I go camping, I love to sleep on my side because it's actually more comforting and it makes me feel more secure. And I don't do back sleeping when I'm camping. So I was like, oh, I don't need. So now I realize what I kind of need. So maybe kind of figure that out. When you're going out, just set up a makeshift camp in your backyard or wherever you go before you buy an expensive sleeping bag, and figure out how you actually really sleep when you're camping. Because a lot of people do sleep a little bit differently when they're camping and they're outdoors, just because, like I said, that side sleeping position for me when I'm outdoors is, I think, more of a comfort thing and more of a security thing, because I feel like I'm curled up and I'm more secure with my back out, whereas my face isn't as exposed. So you might sleep differently too. So those are things to think about, before you just go out and buy all the this gear and stuff like that, is to think about those things okay, what do I really want to be doing? And kind of picture in your head, Adrienne, she said she bike packs, and I've actually, done a couple things with bike packing way in my, past previous life. And with that, it takes a whole different, kind of more ultralight system. And I've actually lately been going with the ultralight. And I honestly thought I would never go ultralight. I actually, gonna say this, I poo-pooed it. I was like, ultralight, why would you do ultralight? And now I'm like, okay, there is something to ultralight. And I absolutely I've got a Black Diamond ultralight pack that I use for climbing and everything. And the reason why is I'm getting older and it saves my knees and it saves my back. And there is something to it. I mean, they are going to be a little bit more expensive, I will admit, this is for about budget stuff, but you also have to think about the future, and with your back and with your knees and stuff like that. And if you're getting into the bike packing or the longer extended hikes, or I'm starting to get into, the more ultra running stuff, it's you have to think about what your body's going to do later on. And unfortunately, because I was wearing really heavy packs when I first started out backpacking, I was wearing I still have it an for one of those external, and they're super they're super heavy. And now my back was hurting, and it still hurts when I go out and stuff. My back hurts a lot of the time, my knees hurt, my feet start hurting. So that's why I did go with ultralight. And I kind of pick and choose with the ultralight what I like and don't like. And I still haven't gone the route of getting a backpack that's ultralight yet, just because it's super expensive. And the hyperlight ones that I really like, oh my gosh, I've actually tried to reach out.
I think we might actually be having a technical difficulty. Oh, it's definitely not yours, Adrienne. I think it might be Hallie's. Hallie, are you there? Oh, I think we might have lost our speaker, ladies. Okay, 1 second here. Oh, I think she just got popped off. So I'm gonna just give it 1 second here and see if she hops back in. And if she doesn't, we will wrap up. I think she was wrapping up anyways, but we can wrap up and do our giveaway if she doesn't hop back on here in the next 2 minutes. Right, yeah, technology is great when it actually works. Oh, there she is. Hi. You're muted right now.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, you're good now. That was funny. Okay. I don't know what
I know, I'm
happened.
just like talking away and I'm like, oh, apparently Zoom doesn't want me talking more.
I know that's okay. I was like, I think she's probably wrapping up, but anyways, I was like,
Yeah. So those are just like I said, some of the things that, I would definitely on a budget think about is go, before you start out, if you're just starting out, I'm just kind of wrap things up. If you're just starting out and you're like, oh, I really don't know what I want to do or what I like, or if I even want a backpack, I'm not into this yet. Just like I say, go to Costco, go to things like that, go to the secondhand stores, find something that will just get you out the door, just to get you started, and figure out like, then you'll be able to be like, oh, I'm really going to get into this, spend the money on the shoes though, just because like I said, if you are just starting out and you get miserable shoes, you're going to hate it. Everything else is going to go downhill quickly. So those are things that I would not be too budget friendly on. I mean, you can find good deals on shoes a lot of the time, and especially like the Darn Tough, farm to feet socks, they can give you good deals. A lot of the time you'll find them at REI. There's another place, I can't remember, I'm drawing a blank, but there's another big website that has like all these like different brands on it. I'm drawing a blank. I can't remember the name of it now.
GoBros is a sock company based out of Minnesota, and they have all the socks that you could ever want.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So those are things that, but like I said, if you're just starting out, go to those secondhand stores, go pick out a backpack or just a day pack at like the Costco or, the big box store, even though it's like, sometimes a lot of people don't want to go to those stores, but if you're just starting out, steep and cheap. Yes, Mary, thank you so much. It's exactly what I was like thinking in my head. That is an awesome place to find like all the gear. That's where I've actually bought like a couple pair of my pants off of there. They have almost any brand that you can think of on there. And like I said, Patagonia outlet stores, if you're near one, the extra smalls and small men's, you will find the best deals possible at that. And like I said, if you're like at the steep and cheap, you can also like go to the extra small for men's on there as well. And you'll find some great deals on that stuff. And like I said, for as far as like sleeping bags, look at those rating systems. Same thing with backpacks. Look at the rating system and figure out how much weight do you really want to put on your back. And then look at that rating system and be like, okay, this is not going to cut it for me, before you go out and just buy that backpack. And if you're friends, if you're like hiking with people and you don't really have a backpack yet, ask them to try theirs on. If they're like the same size as you or whatever, ask them, say, hey, can I try yours, and see what it feels like on. If you're like, kind of like, you want to like do that. Yeah, same here. I love like the men's colors. Like I get the Patagonia, like the greens. They have really nice like colors for some reason, especially like some of the women's colors, the foo-foo-y ones aren't doing it for me. So but those are things like, yeah, if you go out with people, just ask them, just say, hey, I'm just starting out, and can I borrow your pack? And they should be fine with that and say, yeah, I mean, I've done that with people. I'm like, yeah, sure, try my Osprey on. And they're like, oh, I don't like this. It doesn't fit right. And I've tried theirs on and go, oh, like the Gregory, thankfully I found out before, because I was going to buy one just because everyone swore by them. And they're like, oh, Gregory's are great. So I actually was going to buy one and a friend had one and I tried it on. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't like the way this fits around my hips and stuff. And thankfully, I was able to do that. So kind of look at that stuff too. If you ever go to a Women Who Explore event, a lot of the time that everyone will have different backpacks and you can kind of swap stuff out and do that before you start going in, down that rabbit hole like I did sometimes. And unfortunately, your money's out the door and you're like, oh shoot, this really sucks now. But yeah.
I know that like REI also like you can rent gear sometimes from like some local REIs to try different. So
Yeah.
if you're looking, I don't know if they rent out their own REI gear, if they like rent out different types, but that's like always an option too. And then yeah, sometimes there's like trips out there, like when on our backpacking trips that we do, we always like have the option for people to rent gear. And I know we build out our own gear library, so we have all different kinds of brands to offer, or like to offer people, so it's not just one. But yeah,
and like she
universities,
said,
that's a great
Montana,
idea. I forget about that, but yeah, there's a lot of universities that rent out gear too.
Yeah.
And that's always like a super And honestly, if you're going to anywhere, I feel like if you're going to anywhere like that's a big outdoor mecca place, there's always stores that rent gear. Cause like in Iceland, we had a bunch of people rent gear when we did trekking, and we have people renting gear when we go down to Peru and when we go to the Dolomites. So I think if you're in a place where there's a lot of that like outdoor stuff, there's probably some sort of form of gear rental out there for you.
Yeah, I would highly, recommend that stuff. I wish I would have had that when I was first starting out. They didn't really have that programs and everything, and I didn't know. But like I said, I hope some of the stuff I like went over tonight helps you guys out. Like, just like the patching the gear with the Nozo patches, tenacious tape. Those two things are great. Like I said, the patches just tell the story. It's like scars, they'll tell like where your coat's been and stuff.
I was gonna say, I have one question. What would your suggestion be for like a first aid kit? Because I know that the ones you buy are usually pretty expensive and don't have a lot of stuff. So I would say, like, would your recommendation be to kind of build your own kit?
I would absolutely on first aid build my own, because like the adventure medical kits are great, but if you open it up and look in them, you're literally like, what am I using this for? Why would I use this? Like, and I have on it, like I actually was given one as a gift once, and I looked at it and I don't think I've used anything in it, just because I have an old bag that I use. It's an actually old rock climbing shoe bag that I've made into a first aid kit. And I've put my own stuff in it, because a lot of the time for me, the stuff that I know I'm going to use for a first aid kit is feet repair, just because my feet are always getting messed up for whatever reason, just because over the years from firefighting and doing stuff, my feet have kind of just done their own thing now. So I know I need that. So I just have a little kit of a lot of feet repair stuff. I have like, ibuprofen in there. I've got, nail clippers, duct tape, stuff like that. And I've got a lot of like, stuff for my stomach as well. Pepto-Bismols, like Gas-X, stuff like that I know I'll use and other people will probably use, just, from backpacking with other people and knowing what their issues are. It's always the feet. So I always put a lot of first aid stuff for feet in there. And then I always like put a lot of like stuff for stomach issues in my pack, just because those are usually the like two that always someone's going to have issues with, or myself, I'm going to have some issues with. Day hiking, I'm just going to eat the wrong thing, or my stomach's just not going to be a happy camper, or for some reason my feet are just not going to be happy. So I would say, don't go out and buy those first aid kits. They look really cool, I'll admit, but unfortunately a lot of the time, almost anyone I've ever talked to that has one of those has never used hardly anything in them, but maybe the bobby pin, the tweezers. I've never used that. And, so it's like, just make your own, kind of think about yourself and where you're going to be going and think, okay, what on me would possibly go wrong? Maybe like for me, it's my feet, my stomach. And for you, what is that? Like, what would you want in there, and kind of build off of that. And you'll find over, like over the course of like going outdoors, you'll be like, oh, this is what I really want my, first aid kit, because you don't need a ton of stuff in it. And I always just go to Walmart or CVS Pharmacy and find all that stuff. Like I have Ace tape. I should probably have like stock in Ace tape, just because I use so much of it for my feet. But it's like, Walmart, I buy that stuff for like a couple bucks, CVS and stuff. So you don't need to go online and buy all the different like fancy medical stuff. You can just go Walmart and start picking and choosing, go and like just pick out a little kit for yourself and build off of that is what I would do. And make a cool one, find a cool bag that you really like and make your own little kit. I think that would be the best option.
Love it. That's great advice. So
yeah.
I guess we'll just do, if anybody else has questions, wants to either like hop on and ask a question, or Dollar Tree has some good samples. Yeah, I love the Dollar Tree. I am a big fan, especially because they have Chewy Nerds in a box. And
oh my gosh.
They're my favorite trail like treat. I was like, any reason to eat candy or snacks.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I love the Dollar Tree. But yeah, it honestly is just amazing to me, like how much budget stuff you can actually find out there if you just look for it. Yeah,
for sure. Cool. So if anybody has questions, otherwise we're gonna Hallie, do you want to pick? I'm gonna pop over to the regular screen here. Do you want to pick a number 1 through 19?
I just had a quick question.
Oh, yeah.
I had my hand up. Hallie, thank you, first of all, for this. It's been fabulous.
Oh,
The
thank
question I
you.
had was, you mentioned that you did some other groups or classes or something, and so I was wondering where I can find that information.
Oh, yeah. So I teach through, can you hear me okay through there? So I actually teach like wilderness first aid, and it's through like Beyond The Backcountry LLC.
Okay.
I teach like, well, yeah, like teach wilderness first aid, survival classes, how to build shelters, fires, that sort of thing. Yeah, that's
Thank
kind
you.
of what I love to get people outdoors with that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
She is an
Yeah, thank
excellent
you.
teacher. And should we also, on our website, you can go to, we have an educational page, and she has a couple other classes that she's done for us on, like she's talking about the backcountry safety class. I think there's a couple of them, and so we have a first aid
Yeah.
video class, like a first aid class on there. So there's other like resources too that you can go back and rewatch if you want. Oh yeah, this is a great tip, Kelsey.
Oh yeah.
If you have an HSA or an FSA through your work account, you can buy this stuff, and you can buy a lot of this stuff, especially FSAs, because FSAs you have like a time frame when you have to use them. And not that I am saying anybody here is of this age, but my mother also is on Medicare, and she every like so many months has to spend so much money on like band-aids and stuff, and she'll be like, here's a box of band-aids, and I'm like, thanks, I guess, like but apparently if you have a mother or somebody, but yeah, the FSA and the HSA is a really great tip because it's all pre-tax. And
Yeah.
so
yeah, there's so much out there for like, yeah, just finding those little budget friendly stuff. Like I'm always doing research on that stuff and finding I hardly buy anything anymore gear wise that full price. It's always waiting for the sales, and a lot of time you get the sales just because it's a product that was 2 years ago and they don't like the color, and they're like, it's a last color from something or whatever, and I buy it even though it might be a little awkward, or it's like, oh, I'll just buy it, I don't care, it gets me through for whatever I'm doing.
yeah, I hear you. Okay, any other questions or tips or tricks that you guys want to share? Real good.